After I checked into my Airbnb, my hostess recommended Diablo Burger, so I decided I would go check it out. The restaurant's interior was a little bit cramped, but I was hungry and I didn't care. The selection and price point was about what I would expect for a college town burger joint. But what I wasn't expecting was the interesting way in which they serve water. They decant it to you in a glass bottle and give you a cup to serve yourself. But when my burger came, I was actually in for a disappointment. The amount of salad they gave was very generous, but the burger itself was extremely small, especially for the price that I was paying. Unfortunately, I can't give this place a thumbs up. So what we have here for Diablo Burger is overpriced for the amount of food you get, overpriced for the quality of food you get, and some extremely uncomfortable seats. Undaunted, I continued to travel around Flagstaff on foot. I discovered a coffee shop called the Late Train, which was something of a misnomer because at the time that I visited, it actually wasn't open. So outside here, we have ourselves a lovely patio, the brick wall strategically placed to prevent any of the evening sun from hitting the customers. So there actually was a business there I was able to patronize, a wine bar. I ordered this red wine, which, if I remember correctly, had enough raspberry notes to make Carol Channing a very happy lady. Sitting here in downtown Flagstaff was quite nice. It was very peaceful and quiet, with a lot of foliage and interesting people to talk to. For breakfast the next morning, I picked the Country Host Restaurant Diner in East Flagstaff. They were very pronto with the coffee, and the menu was quite extensive. I almost couldn't decide what to get because it all looked good to me. But eventually I did decide on a rustic plate of scrambled eggs and sausage. This was quite delicious, and if I remember correctly, fairly well priced. There's no cheese on this thing, but that's entirely my own fault. My first real pit stop of the day was in Winslow, Arizona at Mojo Coffee. I like the way it's decorated, both inside and out. The coffee that I purchased that day was a Rwandan blend. It was very full-bodied and almost certainly loaded with caffeine. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend this place. To get there, all you gotta do is take the I-40 to Winslow, Arizona and take the Park Drive exit. On the roadside by Lupton, we encounter a beautiful view of some dazzling rocks. Window Rock is around here somewhere. As you can see, I am in the middle of the desert, where the sun burns like a hot kebab. But I searched every square inch. Man, look at that mesa. I had to stop because I thought she was a real beaut. Soon after, I crossed into New Mexico and found myself in the town of Gallup. It was a very interesting place, and I unfortunately only got a little bit of footage. Here is a bit of a knife shop. Well, it's really an antique store, but they had an awful lot of knives. After checking into my Airbnb, I found myself at the Big Texan Ranch Steakhouse, world famous, featured on the Food Network. Now, I noticed that there were a great deal of steakhouses in Amarillo, 10 easily, but this was the one I was going for. Once inside, I found the interior decoration to be very eclectic. I rather liked the bison and the bear and, well, the moose and what in the world am I... Anyways, when I ordered my meal, it came with a light salad. Doesn't look like much, but it tasted fantastic. Had a really lovely dressing. But look at the size of this steak. I've got big hands, and this thing, look at it. It's called the Duke, by the way, and when you open it up, it is tender and juicy. So, after spending the night in my Airbnb, during which there was an amazing July storm, I returned to the Big Texan Steakhouse Ranch for their breakfast menu, and let me tell you, I was amazed. I didn't know what to expect, but if I had high expectations, they were shattered. This thing that you see on the screen is a fully loaded omelet crafted by an expert chef at their breakfast buffet. You wouldn't normally expect an omelet to be this incredible, especially one at an all-you-can-eat place where they're making the omelet for you. Now what you're seeing is some of their special Texas hot sauce that I forgot to have the night before. Suffice it to say, I highly recommend this place. This is a fun little place in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Tacos, coffee, clothing store, I think, some kind of. Upstairs region. This is fantastic. So, the most singular thing I found was Epiphany Espresso. They had heavy cream, so I got some. It is quite superb. It's some kind of dark medium roast. I didn't get all the details, but it is splendid. It's right next to a place called Acme Acres, so watch out for tiny. After passing through New Mexico, I found myself once again in Arizona. And when I got to Kingman, I got a crazy idea in my head. What if I just went to Vegas? I thought that perhaps all the hotels are probably booked by now. So I tried Airbnb, and it worked. I cannot emphasize enough how amazing Airbnb is. So, after a few hours of driving and a brief stop at the Hoover Dam, I made it to my Airbnb in Las Vegas. It's probably one of the best Airbnbs I've ever stayed at. I took a shower, I changed, and used another app, Uber, to get myself down to the Strip so I could go wild and crazy. The very first bar I visited that night was Rockin' Riley's. It's a sort of Irish pub. What follows is raw and unscripted reactions to their unique whiskeys. So this is Rockin' Riley's very own ginger whiskey. I'm about to give this a try. Time for the reaction shot. Salud.
Budweiser and Blue Moon?
Yep. How singularly potent. It's alright. Rockin' Riley's Mother's Milk. I'd make a Serenity joke, but oh, now that is perfection. It's definitely an Irish whiskey. Alright, we're giving the old Kentucky chew. I think it might be aged in an oak barrel, but I could be wrong. I'm gonna ask the gentleman who's tending bar if I'm right or wrong about that. And apparently a gator just chased a girl up a tree. That's a very sad story. What followed was a most delightful night of bar hopping and gambling. I actually won $30 at the New York, New York. It was a great time. But by the end of it, I was pretty trashed. And thanks to Uber, I managed to get back to my Airbnb safely. Now the very next morning, well, what are you gonna do after a night of drinking? Breakfast food, of course. And of course I wound up in the omelet house the next morning. I tasted these, they're really good. They're like potato chips, but they're like soft and salty. It's really good. This is the kitchen sink. This is a real omelet. I will say though, this is very, very hearty. By the time I got to about this point, I was about ready to throw in the towel. I am normally the kind of guy who will eat all his trimmings and his scraps, but I am just... This omelet kicked my ass. I respect it beautifully.